Good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of the 2020 OAA Council, I would like to thank you for being here today online for our 130th Annual General Meeting and for our first ever virtual AGM. I'm Kathleen Kurtin, and I'm pleased to be the President of the Ontario Association of Architects. I hope you were able to tune into the meeting a few minutes early today and see the names of our newly licensed members scrolling across the screen. We are so very proud of these individuals and congratulate them on achieving their license. We can all appreciate the hard work and dedication that goes into becoming licensed. Let's welcome them into the profession. And I just have to tap the table because that's all I can do in a virtual meeting. Before I can begin, I would like to take a moment to recognize the members of the 2020 Council. Vice President of Communications, Amir Azadeh, has been instrumental in the OAA website redesign and renewed association logo, both of which were officially launched on June 30th. He also is involved in the programming of the Next Shift Challenge and the 2020 award celebration coming virtually in the fall. Bill Birdsall is veteran to past councils as well as past president. Bill continues to support the Grand Valley, London, and Niagara societies as councillor liaison, as well as participating on the Experience Requirements Committee, the Public Interest Review Committee, and the Communications Committee. Donald Chen is one of our recently appointed Lieutenant Governors and Council members. Donald is serving on complaints as well as the Audit Committee to ensure the important public perspective is represented. Barry Klein has been a long-serving councillor going back several decades and has recently returned to council. Barry is serving on the OAA's Public Interest Review Committee and the Fees Mediation Committee. Gordon Erskine has been a member of council for 2 terms and brings his expertise to the Building Committee, Complaints Committee, and the OAA Arito Joint Task Group, as well as liaison to the Ottawa Society of Architects. Jeremiah Garmand is the first licensed technology OAA to serve on the OAA Council. Jeremiah has been integral in raising awareness and increasing the involvement of licensed technologists OAA in OAA activities. Jeremiah is also a member of the Communications Committee, the OAAS Board of Directors, and liaison to Northwestern Ontario Society of Architects. Vice President Regulatory Paul Hastings has recently returned to council after having served a number of years ago. In the first year of his new term on council, Paul was elected Vice President and serves as chair to Discipline, ERC, and Registration Committees. Jeffrey Lafarge is currently involved in the Comprehensive Education Committee, Governance Committee, as well as Ontario's representative in the National Committee for the Examination of Architects in Canada. He also serves as the council liaison to Algoma, North Bay, and Northern Ontario Societies of Architects. We welcome back Michelle Longlade, who has recently been reappointed Lieutenant Governor and Council after a hiatus of a couple of years. Michelle also serves as a member of the Discipline Committee, but we're going to give her more work next year. Our Vice President Education, Agata Mancini, has embraced her role in this newly created portfolio. Agata is responsible for chairing the Comprehensive Education Committee, as well as a member of the OAA Arito Joint Task Group, and is the council liaison to the Hamilton and Burlington Society of Architects. Elaine Mintz is another long-serving LGIC appointee. Elaine's great passion is reflected in her work with the Communications Committee. She is also serving on the Discipline Committee, Governance Committee, and Public Interest Review Committee. I'm pleased to introduce Council's interim architect representative for 2020, Milda Mishkinski. Oh, Milda, I'm sorry. Mishkinski. Milda has been busy with the Interns Committee this year and its new initiatives. She is also involved in the Comprehensive Education Committee and is a vocal member at the council table, sharing her thoughts and ideas on current initiatives from the interns' perspective. Sarah Murray currently serves on the Pro-Indemnity Board in addition to the Complaints Committee and is the liaison for the St. Lawrence Society. David Rich has been involved in practically every aspect of the OAA and is particularly passionate about building relationships with the schools of architecture, intern issues, and ongoing government policy matters affecting the profession. This year, David is serving on budget, governance, PIRC, and registration committees, and is the liaison with the Toronto Society of Architects. Our Senior Vice President and Treasurer, Susan Spiegel, has had a very busy schedule this year with the oversight of the OAA's finances, as well as serving on the Governance Committee, Policy Advocacy Coordination Team, and the Pro-Indemnity Board of Directors. Susan is also the liaison to the Northumberland, Durham, and Trent societies. New member to council, Vice President Strategic, Andrew Thompson, is currently chair of the Sustainable Built Environments Committee and Policy Advocacy Coordination Team. Andy is also a member of the Building Committee, the OAA OGCA Best Practices Committee, as well as serving as the OAA's representative to the Construction and Design Alliance, Ontario. Lieutenant Governor in Council appointee Gagan Singh is another recently appointed member to Council. Gagan is quickly becoming involved in the regulatory side of the OAA as a member of the Discipline Committee and as our Complaints Review Counselor. And finally, our Vice President Practice, Sedamo Villardi, is new to Council this year and is currently chairs of the Practice Resource Committee and the OAA's Subcommittee on Building Codes and Regulations. Set is also involved in PAC, the Practice Review Committee, and acts as the Council liaison to the Windsor Society of Architects. It's important to recognize the efforts of these individuals and the hard work that they perform as members of OAA Council. There are many committees and working groups that carry out the work of the OAA, and each of these people work very hard to help support the membership in their voluntary roles in Council. So thank you to all our councillors for all of your efforts. I would also like to take time to recognize and thank our staff at the OAA. I've had the opportunity to work closely with these people for a number of years. Oh, I shouldn't say these people. These are fabulous staff, and would like to extend our appreciation to them for their service and dedication. Before we begin the business of today's meeting, I would like to take a few moments to recognize the traditional lands upon which we are individually and collectively standing to participate in this meeting. We are coming together today from many different geographical locations and are participating from our homes and offices, all located on various traditional Indigenous territories on this continent known as Turtle Island. I would like to encourage everyone to reflect on and recognize the significance of these territories to Indigenous peoples and our mutual obligations to respect and share these lands. As an expression of our commitment to truth and reconciliation, we would like to share the following short video, Headdress. Please take a moment to reflect as we experience the video together. You know, I've seen that video a few times and I'm moved every time I see it. So I will now call this meeting to order. No amendments to the agenda have been identified, and therefore the agenda today will stand as circulated. Please note that the formal procedures of this meeting were circulated to the membership in the electronic mailing sent July 16th, 2020. I hope everyone has had a chance to review these procedures in advance of the meeting. At this point, I would like to ask OAA Executive Director, Christy Doyle, to review the procedures as well as a few housekeeping items for the day. Over to you, Christy.
Thank you, Katie, and welcome everybody and good afternoon. As noted, the meeting procedures were circulated in advance with the official notice and agenda. There are a few key points that I would like to remind members of as we begin this meeting, as well as review a few important items that are specific to our very first virtual AGM. In accordance with the bylaws, all of the motions that are to be voted on today have been circulated in advance. New motions or resolutions cannot be introduced or voted on during today's meeting. At various points during the meeting, the President and/or the Vice President and Treasurer will call for questions pertaining to specific agenda items. If you wish to ask a question or provide feedback on those items, please use the Ask a Question function, which you will find to the right of your screen. We will be monitoring these questions as they are entered. If a question is raised that is not related to a specific agenda item that we are dealing with at the time, we will hold those questions or comments until the end, and we will raise them under other business. If multiple questions or comments are raised that are similar in nature, we will group those together. We have allocated approximately 15 minutes at the end of the meeting to deal with other business. However, if we have questions and comments that we cannot address within our 2-hour time frame allocated for this meeting, we will prepare additional follow-up in written format to the membership. If you have a technical question or if you experience technical difficulties during the meeting, please click the link that is shown in green just below the video box to ask a question. It's just below the video player on your screen, and you can ask questions or ask for technical help at that time. Voting on the motions is open to licensed members of the association only, that is architects and licensed technologists, OAA. All licensed members who registered for today's meetings should have received a separate email in advance of this meeting from simplyvoting.com, which contained their required voting credentials. All licensed members should have entered those voting credentials when signing into the meeting today. If you did not, you need to scroll down to the bottom of the screen. This is where the voting area is, and please enter those credentials now. We have confirmed that all voting members that registered were sent an email with their voting credentials. However, if for some reason you did not receive this email, please again use the link provided for technical assistance and indicate such. At this time, we're going to conduct a quick test poll, which will allow voting members to participate in an actual live vote to test the system. Voting members should now see a poll question on their screen. Again, you may need to scroll down your screen to the voting area to see that poll question. You will have the option to vote in favor or against. Please choose either option to cast a vote. If you wish to abstain from any vote today, you will simply refrain from voting, but please note that you will still need to click the continue button in order for your vote to be registered. If for some reason, when a vote is called by the president and the ballot does not appear on that screen at the bottom in the voting area, please click the home button, which appears within the voting area on your screen. This should refresh the box for you. The poll or the ballot should show up. Non-voting members will also see this credential box at the bottom portion of your screen. However, you can just disregard it and the voting screens will not appear for you during the meeting. The final results, however, of each vote will be shown on the video player screen, so everyone will see the results of those votes. For today's meeting, 26 proxy votes have been received, and these have been added to the voting capacity of the member who holds those proxy. Once again, if you have any technical issues, please click the technical assistance link. I thank you for your attention, and I'm just waiting to see if we've had a successful test vote. Are we seeing it on the screen, Adam? Okay, thank you.
Yes, so I just read that, and I will deal with it as soon as come back.
So at this point, I believe we've had a test vote. We'll just let Adam, can you confirm that for me? I'm not seeing the screen. Okay, because I'm not seeing the screen. Yeah, that's it.
Good to go?
Yeah.
Thank you, Christy and Adam, for coordinating that. Before we move on to the next item on the agenda, I just would like to acknowledge an oversight on my part. I forgot to mention Natasha Cricken, who is new to council this year as well. I can only say I probably deleted her name when I deleted my name because we are together 2 Ks in a row. So I apologize, Natasha. Natasha's taken on the role of leading the interns working committee and also the reconciliation working group, and has been very active on council right from the get-go. So thank you, Natasha, and I apologize for having missed you. So next item on the business agenda is to recognize those among us who have been members of the OAA for over 50 years. This is such a remarkable achievement. We are very pleased today to recognize this very special group. We'd like to take a moment during our meeting to read a brief bio for each individual and share some photos that have been personally selected by each of the long-standing members. Our first member of long-standing is Brian Odd. Brian Odd graduated from the University of Toronto with a Bachelor of Architecture in 1965. He worked with Project Planning Limited in Toronto in the late 1960s, primarily on new buildings for the University of Guelph. Brian later became partner with Built Environment Coordinators Limited from 1968 to 1980, participating in the development of feasibility studies and facility planning documents for the university and government institutional projects across Canada and internationally. In 1980, Brian launched his own private practice where he happily continues his work today. He has successfully designed a wide range of projects from restaurants and small commercial units to custom housing. Brian now enjoys spending time remodeling the home he built 45 years ago. He is pursuing his passion for travel, which he enjoys with his wife of 56 years, Darlene. Additionally, Brian enjoys family time rebuilding old cars with his son and reading publications on ancient philosophy and renewable energy. Congratulations, Brian. Next, the OAA would like to recognize Robin E.C. Clark. Robin Clark attended the Polytechnic University of Westminster School of Architecture in London, England, where he was the recipient of several awards, including the Royal Institute of British Architects, RIBA, Rome Scholarship. He worked briefly in London prior to immigrating to Canada in 1967. Robin has been a partner with Web new name, I'm just WZMH, that shows my age when I used to use the real words, Clark Darling Downey, Robin Clark Associates, Griffles Associates, and Page and Steele. He has worked successfully as a sole practitioner for the past 12 years. Robin has participated on office commercial projects in excess of 500,000 square meters throughout North America, including the Royal Bank Plaza and several Bell Canada buildings. He was also involved in projects for the Four Seasons, Ritz-Carlton, Marriott Hilton, Sheraton, and other hospitality chains. Robin assisted in the design and completion of thousands of high-rise and medium-sized residential units, including One York Quay at 550 Queens Quay West in Toronto. His projects also include secondary and post-secondary education institutions, such as Norway Public, West End Toronto Secondary, Humber College, York University, and Ontario Tech University, as well as student residences. His institutional portfolio includes the RCMP Forensic Labs, Science Labs, and work for the Canadian Medical Association. Robin's passion in his work is also evident in the restoration, renovation, and repositioning of buildings such as the Chateau Laurier, King Edward Hotel, the Kingston Week Standard Offices, UTO, Faculty of Criminology, Royal Canadian Yacht Club, and Four Seasons hotels in Prague and Istanbul. He continues to enjoy a very fulfilling career and wishes to express his appreciation to his clients, partners, associates, technical staff, engineers, consultants, and family, as well as the OAA for today's recognition. Congratulations, Robin. The next individual, Leonard W. Dixon, has expressed his appreciation for the recognition of this great achievement and has made a request to gracefully accept this recognition with no elaboration. He continues to practice architecture and focus on his family. Congratulations, Leonard. Next, the OAA would like to recognize John Anthony Jackson. Tony Jackson graduated from Durham University in the UK, having spent his 4th summer vacation in Canada, where he worked for the Toronto firm of Mathers and Holdenby, who was preparing work for the government buildings at Queen's Park. When Tony returned to England for his final year at university, the practice offered him a job upon graduation, so he emigrated to Canada in 1964. Other projects with Mathers and Holdenby included Leslie Frost Treasury Building at Queen's Park, the John Roberts Library at the University of Toronto, and the Animal Science and Nutrition Building at Guelph University. In 1967, the Eaton Company wanted to develop the Eaton Center in downtown Toronto. Mathers and Holdenby associated with the New York firm Skidmore, Owens and Merrill to prepare the designs for the new shopping concourse. In 1969, Tony moved to Henry Fleece Architect, gaining extensive experience in industrial buildings, hotels, and shopping centers, and low and high-rise residential buildings. 7 years later, he joined Peter McCutcheon in Burlington, becoming a partner of the firm McCutcheon Blooms Jackson Architects in 1978. The main work was in the industrial, commercial, and residential sector, with offices in Houston, Texas, involved in the construction management of office buildings and residential townhouses. In 1981, in partnership with close friend Julian Ryder, he co-founded Jackson Ryder Architects Limited, focusing on industrial work from high-tech magnetic research facilities to metal foundry buildings. Clients included General Motors of Canada, Dofasco, and the Quebec Ontario Paper Company. He had municipal commissions for projects in the town of Oakville and other municipal work throughout the province, as well as the Twin Pad arena, in New York. In 2006, they closed Jackson Ryder, and he continued finishing the work on hand, finally retiring and closing his practice in April 2008. 2 months later, long retirement here, Tony joined the architectural group Hatch Limited, a large international engineering firm with which worked all over the world. He is now involved with and inspired by work in many different countries around the world, some with budgets in the billions. The work has ranged from large hydroelectric systems in Canada and overseas, mines in the Andes, Greece, and Africa, and other large engineering projects or production projects. Tony continues to do what he loves to do, mentors those who are rising up alongside him, and works with like-minded professionals who are interesting and supportive. He is thankful for the endless encouragement of his wife and children, and fondly remembers 5 decades of drawings, buildings, and friendships. Congratulations, Tony. Finally, we would like to recognize Peter R. Moy. Peter Moy was educated at the Northern Polytech School in London, where he graduated with a Diploma of Architecture honors in 1955. He emigrated to Ottawa that same year before being elected to the Royal Institute of British Architects in 1956. To become fully licensed in Ontario, the OAA required him to complete a course of study plus the execution of a design subject. In 1963, he took the first 2-week full-time OAA course in Toronto, recalling the experience as being a delightful change from hard work and lots of virtual overtime. He feels that if he had not been involved in working those years at Lithwick, Lambert, Sim, and Johnson, the largest and possibly busiest architectural practice in Ottawa, his 50th anniversary might have been celebrated a decade earlier. Peter spent 15 years as a partner with the firm up to 1986, followed by establishing business as a sole principal from his home office. Initially, he engaged several employees, each working from their home offices during the pre-computer period, which made off-site arrangements somewhat of a challenge. With the digital age later in full swing, Peter self-trained in AutoCAD and Word and has worked successfully as a one-person operation. Peter continues to enjoy working on small projects and has no immediate plans for retirement. Again, thank you and congratulations to these individuals for their perseverance, dedication, and long-standing contributions to the profession. As part of recognizing their achievement, a framed certificate of recognition has been prepared and will be sent to each member of longstanding. The next item of appreciation to the OAA is to OAA councillors who have recently completed their term on council. Volunteers are absolutely vital to the work that the OAA does, and we would like to take this time to acknowledge the contributions of the following individuals as members of council: Melissa Audette, Walter Durhak, David C.K. Sin, John Stevenson, Alberto Temprano, Maggie Youssef, and the late Mazen Akadam. I would like to ask OAA Executive Director Christy Doyle to read their citations. Christy?
Thank you, Katie. To begin our appreciation today, we would like to recognize the contribution of the late Mazen Al-Qadam. Last year, Mazen lost his fight against cancer, and we continue to think about Mazen's family as they deal with their incredible loss. We hope that good memories and the support of their loved ones continue to help them get through this difficult time. It was certainly with great sadness that the OAA and the profession lost a very special member of council last year. The passing of Mazen has left a void around the council table and in many hearts. Despite his illness, Mazen was always a pleasure to work with, having a positive, optimistic outlook. He was appointed to council in 2017, already a veteran, having worked on other OAA committees. Mazen took on his role as a councillor with dedication and commitment. During his tenure, he served as a member of the Complaints Committee, the Project Administration Resource Committee, and the Budget Committee. He also contributed to the Practice Committee, and the Sustainable Built Environments Committee. Mazen will be remembered at the OAA as a kind and thoughtful person with a great passion for his family, friends, and career, and he will be missed by all. On behalf of council and the association, we wish to express our sincere appreciation for Mazen for the contribution to the profession of architecture, albeit much too short. Next, we would like to recognize Melisa Audette. I'm pleased to recognize Melisa for her contribution to OAA Council, which began in 2018. In her very first year, she dove in headfirst and was elected to Executive Committee as Vice President Regulatory. Under the portfolio, she served as chair of the Discipline, Experience Requirements, and Registration Committees. Melisa embraced the opportunity as well to chair the Interns Committee with a view to helping council better understand the challenges and barriers to licensure. Melisa also volunteered to serve as the council liaison on a grassroots level to the Toronto Society of Architects. Adding to her role in the second year on council, Melisa was appointed to the Budget Committee. As some of you may be aware, Melisa left council at the end of 2019 in order to take on a new role as manager of the OAA's Practice Advisory Services. Melisa is a great asset to the profession and to the OAA, and we look forward to her continued contribution as a valued member of the OAA staff team. Next, we would like to recognize Walter Durham. I'm pleased to recognize Walter, who, seemingly quiet and reserved, was a mighty contributor to council. He began his term in 2017 and was also immediately elected to the Executive Committee, where he served as Vice President Practice. Walter led and liaised with the various committees under the practice portfolio. As Vice President, Walter was also involved in liaising with outside industry partners such as the Ontario General Contractors Association. Walter also served on the Policy Advocacy Coordination Team as the link between policy and practice, as well as balancing his time as the liaison to council with the London as well as Windsor Societies of Architects. Walter was integral to the work that the OAA undertook to advance amendments to the internship program on a national level, as he was a member of the OAA's IAP task group. He was also instrumental in the development of the OAA's submission to the provincial government regarding professional coordination. In his final year on council, Walter was elected by his peers as Senior Vice President and Treasurer, taking on oversight for the OAA's finances on behalf of council and the very important role of interlocking director between OAA and Prodemnity Insurance Company. As well, he was appointed to the OAA Areto Joint Task Force and the Building Committee. Walter's thoughtful and valuable insight with respect to all facets of the profession and interest in its future have been apparent during his time on council. And again, we express our sincere appreciation to Walter. Next, please join me in recognizing Wayne Medford. I'm pleased to recognize Wayne, who was one of our LGIC appointees to council. Under the Architects Act, the composition of the OAA Council must include 3 to 5 members of the public who are appointed by the provincial government to provide an important oversight role on behalf of the public. Our mandate is to protect the public interest, and these important members of council make sure we continue to do just that. We commend Wayne for fulfilling his role with vim, vigor, and dedication. I have to admit that it took some time for Wayne to come out of his shell, being so quiet in nature. We all know that's not true. Wayne was appointed to council in 2009 and served until December 2019, an incredible 10-year term. In his first year on council, Wayne was given significant responsibility as he was appointed to the Discipline Committee, where he tirelessly served up until last year. Wayne has also served the important role of the Complaints Review Councillor. Wayne is also known as the life of the party, but he took his role quite seriously and worked diligently with the other committee members and staff to ensure that the tribunals he worked on were always performed to the highest standards. Wayne's greatest passion, other than his beloved Habs, was communications and fostering a greater awareness of the architectural profession amongst the public. Wayne also served as a council liaison to the Northumberland, Durham, and Trent societies, always touting the importance of the work that the societies do on a grassroots level. In 2012, Wayne was appointed to the Communications Committee, where he always spoke with conviction about the need to make it a top priority to better educate the public about architecture. Wayne was also involved in the website and OAA logo redesign. Wayne, your unrivaled enthusiasm and passion have created quite council. On behalf of the council and the association, we extend sincere appreciation to Wayne and wish him continued success in the future. Next, I'm pleased to recognize David Sin. David was appointed to council in early 2016 and was directly let me begin that again. I'm sorry. Davis was appointed to council early in 2016 by OAA Council directly to fill a vacancy that had been left by an early departure of another council member. During that time, David took on his responsibilities with dedication and jumped right in. In that first year, David was actively involved in the then Construction Contract Administration Committee, as well as the Public Interest Review Committee. During this brief time on council, I think David understood and appreciated the value that volunteers bring to this association and to the profession, and he put his name forward for re-election the following year. With a new 3-year term in place, David expanded his work further into a wide variety of other OAA committees and projects. His desire to gain knowledge from and assist all facets of the association was evident through his work on the Budget Committee, Communications Committee, and Interns Committee, as well as being an OAA trustee. In 2018, David was appointed to the Pro-Demnity Board of Directors and also served in the OAA Arito Task Force, which has been integral to the development of a model for the regulation of interior design under the Architects Act. David headed up the Housing Affordability Task Group, which resulted in a concise and informative report on the state of housing affordability. In David's final year on council, he was elected as Vice President Practice and oversaw the OAA's Practice Advisory Services portfolio, which included delivery of a report and recommendations regarding the challenges around project management at the end of 2019. On behalf of council and the association, David, we extend you sincere appreciation and we wish you continued success in your professional life. Next, we would like to recognize John Stevenson. John's contributions to the OAA and to the profession have been wide-reaching and most certainly impactful. John was no stranger to council, having already served on council quite a number of years ago. We have to assume he enjoyed it when he returned in 2013 to serve another 7 years on OAA council. John's significant experience volunteering with the OAA, along with his enthusiasm, was apparent in his first year as he easily stepped back into the role. John is a strategic and thoughtful thinker and worked hard to build consensus among his fellow councillors around many projects and initiatives. In his second year on council, John was elected by his peers as Vice President Communications, driving the OAA towards a variety of social media platforms. The following year, John was elected as Senior Vice President and Treasurer. With oversight responsibilities for the OAA's finances on behalf of council, John chaired the Audit and Budget Committees and also served on the Education, HR, and Building Committees. Under that portfolio, he also served as an interlocking director to the Pro-Demnity Board. John served as OAA President in 2017 and in 2018, leading the council through a number of key projects, including the renovation of the OAA's headquarters, development of a model for regulation of interior design under the Architects Act, as well as being very involved at the national level as the idea of a national architecture policy began to take shape. One of John's great passions is to unite the country through architecture and also proper recognition of Indigenous people. In late 2019, he was tasked by Council to lead the OAA's Truth and Reconciliation Working Group. His thoughtful, intelligent, and consensus-building qualities will be missed. On behalf of Council and the Association, we extend sincere appreciation to John for his considerable contribution to the profession and wish him continued success. I'd like to now recognize Alberto Temprano. Alberto fulfilled his role as intern architect representative on Council with dedication, professionalism, and with valuable insight. He always listened intently to the discussion around the Council table and contributed in a meaningful way, enriching Council's conversations and debates. While only serving on Council for 1 year, Alberto often provided that much needed fresh perspective on many of the issues discussed and debated over the past year. Alberto served as Councillor Liaison to the OAA's Interns Committee and fostering a closer link between the future of the profession and the rest of Council. Alberto actively advocated for an enhanced and positive relationship with interns throughout their path to becoming licensed. On behalf of Council and the Association, we extend sincere appreciation to Alberto and wish him continued success in his professional life. I am sure we will see Alberto back on Council in the future. Finally, we'd like to recognize Maggie Youssef. Maggie joined OAA Council in 2017, bringing insightful and forward-thinking ideas to the Council table. Meg was always seeking to raise awareness of the architectural profession and the value that a licensed professional brings to their clients. During his tenure on Council, Mag served as a member of the Communications Committee, as well as an interlocking director on the board of the Ontario Association for Applied Architectural Sciences, the OAA's technology program. Mag made insightful contributions to the Continuing Education Committee, now with an expanded scope and mandate under the newly established Comprehensive Education Committee. Mag's 3 years on Council seem brief. However, his enthusiasm and passion will be remembered. On behalf of Council and the Association, we extend sincere appreciation to Mag and wish him continued success in his practice. Thank you everyone for listening, and as part of recognizing their contribution to Council, each of these past members of Council will be receiving a framed certificate of appreciation, which will be sent shortly. I'd like to return the meeting back to Katie now. Thank you.
Thanks, Kirsty. The next part of the meeting is a bit somber. It's with great sadness that I would ask members at this point in the program to please take a moment in silence to observe and recognize those members and past members who have passed away since our last meeting. Thank you. At this point, I'd like to move to our formal business. The next item of business is the confirmation of the synopsis of the minutes of the 129th Annual General Meeting held on May 22nd, 2019 in Quebec City. I will now ask if there are any questions pertaining to the synopsis, errors or omissions. We will pause for about 40 seconds to allow for any questions. Please use the Ask Question function. Any questions, Christy?
No, there's no question. Katie?
So are we ready to move forward?
Yes.
Okay. So having no questions, let's move on. As usual, we've prearranged movers and seconders for the motions that will be before the meeting today. This allows the meeting to move along in an efficient and effective manner. Today's motion to approve the synopsis of the minutes has been moved by Marwa El Kadi of Ottawa and seconded by Daniel Gignac of Guelph. The motion appears on the screen. Please take a moment to review the motion. I will now ask all the members eligible to vote to please cast their vote. We will pause for about 40 seconds to allow time for the votes to be cast. Okay, so it looks like this vote has been successfully completed and the motion is passed. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. I guess this is one of the downsides of virtual meetings is the voting takes a little bit longer. So the next item in the business arising from the minutes is, are there any business arising from the minutes? We will pause for a few moments here to allow for questions to be entered into the ask question function. Wait for about 30 seconds. Any questions, Christy?
No, I do not have any questions on under business arising, Katie.
Okay, thanks very much. The next item is the appointment of an auditor. The motion to appoint Grant Thompson LLP as auditors for the OAA has been moved by Megan Torza of Toronto and seconded by Sandy Smith of Toronto. The motion appears on the screen in front of you. I will now ask all eligible voters to vote. We will pause for about 40 seconds to allow for the vote to be cast. So it looks like we have a successful vote here with 96.72% voting in favor. But I'll have to say that's the longest 40 seconds I've ever sat through. The next item on the agenda is the confirmation of the amendment to Schedule A of the OAA Bylaws revised in 2017, which was emailed to members on July 16th, 2020. In accordance with the Architects Act, bylaws made by council are subject to confirmation at the next annual general meeting of the members. All members received a copy of the amended Schedule A, which was approved by council on December 13th, 2020. The motion to confirm amendment to Schedule A to the OAA bylaw revised 2017 has been moved by Tone Dresden of Ottawa and seconded by Deborah Krakow of Wolf Island. I will now ask all members eligible to vote to cast their vote. We will pause for another one of those very long 40 seconds to give everybody time to vote and the ballots be calculated. Thank you.
Katie, could I cut in for just a minute on the voting?
Yeah.
I just want to remind everybody that if you are in the voting box and the ballot is not appearing, please hit the home button that you'll just see above it, because that will refresh that screen and give you the new ballot if you're not seeing it.
I had that problem this time. So that vote has successfully been passed as well. Let's move on to the next piece. That's a 65%, 28% abstaining. So I'd now like to move to consideration of a motion put forward by a group of members in accordance with the OAA bylaws. The motion and the names of those who duly signed this and submitted the motion were contained in the package that was emailed to the membership on July 16th. The mover of the motion, architect Sheena Sharp, has submitted the following video clip.
Hi, my name is Sheena Sharp, and I'm an architect in Toronto. This is a motion to rescind the requirement to make notorious seals mandatory. A bit of background. The core mandate of the OAA is to protect the public by ensuring that buildings within specific categories are designed competently. The OAA executes this mandate through a licensing process and through ensuring that municipalities only accept designs sealed by licensed architects. Until January 2022, architects can signify that they are licensed by applying a digital image of their rubber stamp to site plan approval and permit drawings. Municipal employees can then check that the name on the stamp has a current license by referring to the OAA website. However, in November 2018, the OAA moved to a mandatory electronic system provided by an outside provider, Notorious. As of January 2019, all new requests for seals have been issued solely in this digital format. Effective January 2022, all architects must exclusively use the Notorious electronic seals to seal documents. There are several problems with this decision. 1, it only addresses the legitimacy of the stamps, which is a small part of ensuring that all buildings within the scope of the Act are designed by architects. 2, architect seals are used primarily on documents submitted to authorities having jurisdiction and on documents related to contract administration. Authorities having jurisdiction already accept digital representations of the stamps. 3, commonly available, inexpensive, and effective software can be used to log drawings and documents. 4, the system does nothing to address whether municipalities are recognizing when stamps are required, which is anecdotally a larger problem. This system is not paid for by existing fees. At a $140 sign-up fee and a $185 annual fee, the amount is affordable for many architects. However, it represents a 20% increase in license fees and approximately $750,000 per year for Notorious, of which the OAA gets 5%. This is a significant cost for a system that is solving a non-existent problem. So, I move that the OAA Council immediately rescind the requirement for mandatory electronic stamps and at the 2021 Annual General Meeting present a report to the membership on the efficacy of the entire stamp system and its ability to meet the OAA's core mandate of ensuring that all proposals submitted to municipalities governing the construction of a building within the scope of the Architects Act. Thank you.
Sheena, as the mover of the motion, has prearranged a seconder, Evangelo Clematis from Windsor. I will now ask all voting members to cast their vote. We will pause for another one of those extended 40 seconds to allow time for the votes to be cast.
Okay, and just speaker eight.
Okay, so we have the results in, so this motion was carried with 81%. So as per OAA bylaws, this motion must be considered by the council within 3 months of the meeting. But note that it is not binding on the council. The motion will be brought forward to the council's September meeting. I would like to mention as well that OAA Council has begun reviewing and evaluating the implications or the implementation of the electronic seals prior to today's AGM, and will be including this motion within the review and evaluation process, which is already under discussion. Okay, so the next item is the 2019 annual report, which was made available on the OAA website on June 10th, 2020. I would like to take a few minutes to speak to the 2019 annual report. I'm not going to get into too much detail in the annual report, as I'm sure most of you have read it. It's referenced on the OAA website and will be linked to the announcement, and was linked to the announcement of the meeting. I know annual reports of professional regulators may not be the first thing that comes to everybody's mind when you're thinking about your summer reading list. However, you may have noticed that this year's edition reflects the OAA's new approach to communications, focusing on the most important information while providing easy access to content. This is your profession and your association, and we really do want you to be able to read through the report and know about the initiatives and actions that have taken place. I would like to start with the 3 major council priorities set in 2019 to guide us in our mission. The first one was to re-examine our approach to comprehensive education for members and the public, strengthen the membership engagement, and finally, improve inclusivity, equity, and accessibility and diversity throughout the profession. These priorities had important impacts last year, intertwined throughout the decisions Council made, and they continue to be incredibly significant this year. And they will have even more significance in the years to come. During my years as OAA Senior Vice President and Treasurer, and then last year as President, I talked often about the transition the OAA was in the midst of. We were working towards a renewed and refreshed headquarters, both our physical building and our virtual online home. These headquarters would set the OAA up to handle an unpredictable future. Little did I know that 2020 would test us to the extent it has. By embracing new challenges and unveiling new forward-looking programs, the OAA continues to be able to meet shifting paradigms. Last May, OAA staff and members returned to our headquarters. For the previous 2 years, we were temporarily located up the street while renovations took place to transform our home to a zero net carbon building. The work utilized embodied energy while adding photovoltaics, high efficiency lighting, displacement ventilation, geothermal heating, enhanced insulation, flexible workspaces, and dynamic glazing. The interior renovations respected the heritage of our landmark building while allowing for increased capacity and a more transparent environment that is open to our membership and the public. Our project, like many projects, was behind schedule, and as a result, OAA staff worked from home for a short period of time. Our executive director, Christy Doyle, joked at the time that it was a dry run for the OAA's emergency response plan. We didn't know then, of course, but this testing of newly introduced remote technologies for mobile productivity would serve us so well this spring when the pandemic hit. The headquarters Renew and Refresh project speaks to the issue of climate stability, which I feel is one of the defining challenges of our lives. As we all know, buildings are significant contributors to our current climate crisis. As leaders charged with protecting the public interest, architects must play a significant role in finding new approaches and showing the public how to reduce environmental impacts of existing buildings. Our headquarters is more than offices and meeting spaces. It is the public and physical embodiment of an architect's skill and aspirations to the community. For OAA members, it is your space also, and I look forward to inviting you all to the grand public opening once we are safely able to do so. Last year, our inaugural event at the OAA building was a workshop on unconscious bias for all of Council, OAA staff, as well as the Pro-Dem board and staff. It was particularly poignant for me that as the building began its second phase of its life, issues of equity, diversity, inclusivity, and transparency were taking a front row seat in the profession. In 2019, we also held our first ever Shift Challenge, a new awards program focused on ideas rather than building projects. Running in alternate years to the Design Excellence Awards, this aspirational program highlights to the public the distinct combination or contribution that architectural thinking brings to key societal issues and concerns. For its first year, the theme was infrastructure, and the jury chose 7 projects demonstrating how the architectural profession could offer new approaches. Topics ranged from cycling pathways and linear parks to energy producing buildings and the missing middle residential zoning. In years to come, I'm looking forward to seeing SHIFT play an important role in promoting an understanding of the profession amongst the public, while providing a vehicle for exploring and testing of ideas. In fact, we will be sharing more information shortly about our especially timely new SHIFT theme, resiliency. The many new programs in 2019 complement the reinforcement of our core mandate of protecting the public interest and regulating the profession of architecture. To that end, we continue liaising with all levels of government on crucial topics, including Ontario's broken site plan approval process. The OAA also shared its commissioned research project on housing affordability in growing urban areas. That report has been very well received by municipal and provincial policymakers. Last year, the OAA responded to a provincial consultation that included proposals that would have radically changed elements of the design construction process. We responded with an extensive submission outlining our objection to the introduction of a certified professional model similar to BC, and positioned ourselves as a key stakeholder for future consultation on this issue. While the government's exploration of these potential changes is not currently moving forward, we continue to monitor the situation and stand ready to offer the profession's perspective in order to protect the public interest. The one other item from the 2019 annual report is the member survey we conducted last year. The results indicated progress since the one we did almost a decade ago. There was significant improvement in intern architects' perception of the OAA and in membership service, but we also note your calls for better communication, education, outreach, and advocacy. We know some of you perceive the OAA as bureaucratic, and we continue to work to find a balance between membership services and our responsibilities as a self-regulating profession. Thank you once again to all of you who participated in this outreach. Your feedback allows the OAA to chart the direction of our programs, services, and policies, and the perspectives you share have a direct impact on our future programs, services, and initiatives, allowing us to continue evolving to support the profession and protect the public. Architecture in Ontario is a self-regulated profession, and we need your involvement. Again, I encourage you to read this annual report and to seek out ways in which you can participate and contribute to the association. Thank you. Are there any questions?
No, Katie, at this point, I have not received any questions specific to the annual report.
Thanks. I would like to move now to the presentation of the 2019 Auditors Report and financial statements, which are contained in the 2019 annual report. I would like to ask OAA Senior Vice President and Treasurer, Susan Spiegel, to address the meeting. Susan?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Hello, everybody. The formal report to the membership from the auditors is contained in the latter pages of the annual report. In summary, Grant Thornton has conducted its audit of the financial statements of the OAA which comprised a statement of the financial position at November 30th, 2019, and the statement of operations for the year then ended. They've conducted their audit in accordance with Canadian generally accepted auditing standards. Within their report, Grant Thornton has indicated that the audit evidence they have obtained is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis for their audit opinion. In their opinion, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the Ontario Association of Architects as at November 30th, 2019, and the results of operations for the year then ended. So although we are focusing on the year end 2019, I will also be commenting on the effects of COVID-19 on OAA finances, our year to date, a bit later in my remarks. But what is so important about the 2019 statements from a 2020 perspective is that you will see that the finances of the OAA are well managed and positioned in such a way as to address unimaginable events in our future, such as COVID-19 has turned out to be. We are fortunate that the pandemic has not affected the association's bottom line at this point. We've been able to address some of the members' challenges by extending deadlines for payment of fees, offering deferrals and relief under the OAA's financial hardship and leave policies. So having said that, I'd like to move back to 2019 and the specific notes of interest on the 2019 audited financial statements. The following items were highlighted by the 2019 Senior Vice President and Treasurer, Walter Durham, that has been spoken about so glowingly previously in this annual meeting within the annual report. It was previously circulated. I want to take a moment once again to thank Walter for his work as the Treasurer and for his diligent oversight of the OAA's finances on behalf of Council. Perhaps you wonder what the role of Senior Vice President and Treasurer is. And so in a very short definition, while having oversight for the OAA finances on behalf of Council and the development of the OAA's annual budget, the Senior Vice President also serves ex officio as an interlocking member on the Pro-Demity Board of Directors. And I know you probably know, but for those of you who don't, Pro-Demity is our insurance company and ensures that all architects in Ontario have equal access to the mandatory levels of professional liability insurance coverage. By wearing both hats, the SVP, as the interlocking member of the OAA Council and Pro-Demity Board of Directors, aids in a better understanding and representing the issues of both entities to each other. The oversight that comes from this can be used to our mutual advantage to define a new picture of the profession. Pro-Demity is a very large part of defining who we are as architects and understanding how to appropriately manage our risks while continuing to protect the public interest. So the items of note relative to revenue and expenses is that the OAA membership continues to grow. This growth is mostly due to a new generation of architects. In 2019, we saw 281 newly licensed members and 6 newly licensed technologists OAA. This infusion of newly licensed members resulted in new members, obviously, but also in increased membership dues of almost more than $300,000 actually. We held our 2019 conference in Quebec City, and because it was an out of Toronto conference, it was in line with historical data for out of Toronto conferences with a reduction in revenue. Our newly refreshed and renewed buildings saw an increase in expenses, such as office services and operating, obviously anticipated a result of relocating back to the OAA headquarters mid-year. And although there is an increase in these expenses, we have a greatly increased asset value in our building. With respect to the finances of the building renovation, 55% of the renovation has been financed through a mortgage that is amortized over 25 years with a yearly paydown option of 10%. And though we now have mortgage payments, which we didn't have earlier, with the climate stability strategies that are embedded into the forward thinking of our refresh and renew in our building, it is anticipated that the mortgage payments will be offset by the energy saving costs from the greenness of our renovation. This is very exciting, and everybody wants to see these numbers. Additional strategies were used to fund the remaining portion of the building renovations, and they are the Major Capital Reserve, MCR, and internal budgeting and organizational efficiencies. The Major Capital Reserve. As responsible building owners, a number of years ago, Council established a Major Capital Reserve. The remaining cost of the building renovation was covered by this reserve fund, which had been built up over the previous number of years. And this did deplete the reserve almost entirely. However, at the close of 2019, OAA Council approved a transfer of 2019 operating surplus of $500,000 to the Major Capital Reserve to ensure available funds for future maintenance and repairs. In recent years, we've been moving towards virtual meetings, which of course is in full gear now. We've ensured individual committee budgets are more defined, special projects identified upfront for the year, and a sustainable approach to mail and paper costs have been substantially decreased. We've negotiated better service contracts in recent years to reduce overhead. So both our Major Capital Reserve and our operations, reducing our operation costs have been very well handled. Members' equity. So the association did exit the year 2019 with a total members' equity of almost $39 million. It's important to note that $28 million of that equity is held within Prodemnity Insurance Company as the sole shareholder. This represents a 2018 growth of $2.8 million, including Prodemnity. The remainder of all of the funds are held in 3 internally restricted reserves: Major Capital Reserve Fund, Operating Reserve, and a Legal Reserve. And you can see the numbers, I'm assuming, on the screen at the moment. The Major Capital Reserve Fund is only for specific OAA long-term projects, obviously such as the renovation, expansion of our facilities, capital asset acquisitions, major renovations, and any other long-term contingencies. Our operating reserve fund, again internally restricted, of $674,000, is set aside to stabilize OAA short-term finances by providing a cushion against unexpected events, unanticipated shortfalls in major revenue sources, as well as significant upsurge in unplanned expenses. We also have a legal reserve, also internally restricted. It's up $10,000. We have it at $52,500, and it's intended for legal contingencies, discipline, and other legal commitments. The use of these funds is, as always, is restricted by the association's reserve fund policies and does require council's approval for any expenditure. In addition to these restricted amounts, we have a further $2.351 million that remains as unrestricted members' equity, which can be used as an additional contingency to offset shortfalls resulting from unbudgeted expenditures or unanticipated revenue fluctuations. And this year we have increased it 40% over last year. It is generally accepted that not-for-profit organizations such as the OAA can accumulate surplus funds for operating purposes up to the equivalent of 1 year's operating expenses without jeopardizing our not-for-profit status. So we are structurally and financially in very good shape. The total members' equity reflects cumulative results of years of the operation of the OAA. The end of every fiscal year, the net surplus or deficit from our general operating budget is added to the members' equity. For 2019, as reported earlier, that was $500,000. To summarize 2019, I'm pleased to report that with ongoing careful management of the fees that we paid to the association, the OAA finances at the close of 2019 were well positioned for the future. And if there are any questions regarding the 2019 audited financial statements, our auditors are here and available to answer any questions that you might have. And I think we're going to wait a few moments.
do have one question. So, yeah, if we could just cut the music for a second. I will read this question out from the members, and then we can address it, or Lindsay, our auditor, can address it. So the question from a member reads, what percentage of OAA equity / revenue results from investment in ProDem? What are the 2020 projections therefrom, taking the COVID-19 ramifications to our profession into consideration? I think there's two pieces to that question. Or Lindsay.
So I can address the first piece of the question. And if you're looking at your statement of operations from 2019, you'll see that of your excess of revenue over expenses, $2 million and 27,000 is from Prodemnity. So the balance of that, just under $800,000, is from the operations of OAA.
Thank you, Lindsay. The second part of the question was about 2020 projections around equity, members' equity. I'm assuming, I'm not sure whether this member's speaking directly about the Prodemnity's portion of that member's equity or total. So Susan, I'm not sure how you want to address this, but again, it's the second part of the question is, what are the 2020 projections therefrom, taking the COVID-19 ramifications to our profession into consideration?
I will try to answer that, and I think that probably Joanne will have some contribution to this as well. And and if I'm not answering, I'm going to answer less about equity and more about operations, because I think the equity is something we probably don't know, although we're expecting to have no issues. And when I speak about 2020 from the OAA point of view, you will see that we're cruising up pretty well on even at this moment, right into the second quarter. I am getting a little text from Bruce. The current projection is a slight profit for the year. And from what I understand, from all that I have seen in the projections from Prodemnity, they've done like the best case scenario to the worst case scenario. We are doing very well because really everything is based on a 3-year cycle. So we're not really in the business of being affected by this is a bigger bump, but everything that happens in the economy. We're well protected, and all of our planning, both in the OAA and Prodemnity, really is based on maintaining a steady state with lots of reserve funds and very careful use of funds. That is the only answer that I can give right now, although if I didn't give the right answer, I'm sure Bruce will be texting me. I think that I'm feeling very confident, and when I go on to speak about 2020, I think that the news is very positive. So maybe I should do that.
Thank you, Susan. I do have one other question that's come in from a member, and I think this one you can answer it, or I'm happy to answer it. The question or the comment was that the reserves for the legal and also capital seemed low. So certainly you can answer that, or I can answer that if you'd like.
You can answer it.
The comment to that really is that the capital reserve was quite high, but was depleted due to the building renovation. So half of the building renovation was financed through that capital reserve. So we are now going through the process of building that again. And with respect to the legal reserve is actually very new. So we have not had many years of contributing to the legal reserve. So that's why it's low. And I think, Susan, you can probably continue because I don't have any more questions from the members.
Okay, good. Well, not good, but we're always happy to answer questions. So, as I said, moving forward from the 2019 financial year to the OAA's 2020 finances, I mean, without a doubt, everybody knows this year has just been exceptional. COVID-19 pandemic has affected all of us in many ways. The COVID pandemic, though, did not start registering any impact on the OAA's financial statements until after April 2020. And I would like to review a few of those effects. So as of May 31st, which is the end of our second quarter, overall expenses for council and committees decreased. Operating expenses such as lighting, water usage, postage, printing, travel, meals, as committees and staff continue to work from home, have all decreased. This is to be expected. Our IT expenses obviously increased to accommodate everybody's remote work. Even though it was well practiced, there were increases in expenses. We anticipate further decrease in all the overall operating costs for the second half of the year as well. The OAA conference and award celebration have been postponed. Through excellent negotiations, the OAA was able to mitigate the impact of the deposits they had out for the conference, and enabled a lot of them to go forward to the next conference. And so our contract obligations were very well managed. We are planning to host the awards later this fall on some platform, which is yet to be determined. So there will be some expenses for that at that time. One really good thing that I was very happy about is our interest rates and our GICs, though that they've dropped in the world, they have dropped incredibly since COVID-19. We managed to take advantage of a PIA, a Premier Investment Account, which offered us the leeway to maintain the same interest rate of 1.8% as we had previously budgeted. So there will be no decrease in the expected 2020 interest revenue. That is fantastic. 97% of the membership fees have been collected. Therefore, there has been no marked negative COVID impact on revenue relative to membership dues. To repeat, our membership did increase this year, and it was an increase of over 300,000. At this point, 90% of the certificates of practice fees have been collected. In response to the pandemic's impact on members, we extended the deadline of the payment for certificate of practice fees till July 31st. Additional time was also given to individual members who had not made payment, and the OAA's financial hardship policy was made available to members who needed it. And as we all know, again, the OAA extended the deadline for the completion of the mandatory continuing education requirements from July 31st to this December 31st. So I guess one thing that I wanted to say, just at the conclusion of telling you how well managed finances at the OAA are, and I'm not talking about me, I'm an oversight and in a way kind of a tourist. Our finances are in very good shape. The question I'd like to ask us, that we are in good financial shape, but we would really also want to be in good leadership shape. Our members want the OAA to be relevant and a thought leader. Our seniors are retiring, and a new generation of architects are being welcomed, heard, and accommodated. Our data demonstrates that the new generation of future architects are happily 50% women. And this pandemic has had unusual effects in so many ways. But events of the last year have revealed an array of structural inequality issues that the world can no longer ignore: systemic racism, entrenched gender gaps, and the absolute necessity for green climate stability initiatives. It is not enough not to actively contribute to system problems. We need to activate creative solutions to address them. Architects must participate in leading the way to rethinking how we're going to live together on this planet. Thank you.
Katie, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Somebody complained to me earlier that I wasn't muted. So now I'd like to move on to welcome the Chair of Pro-Indemnity Board, Joanne McCallan, who will provide a brief overview of Pro-Indemnity Insurance's activities over the past year. But before Joanne begins, I would also like to take a moment on behalf of the OAA to recognize Prodemnity's past chair, Hari Pandey. We extend our sincere thanks to Hari, whose tenure as chair on the board spanned an important transition period for Prodemnity Insurance Company. Hari led the board through this time with great professionalism and was progressive in his desire to enhance the relationship with the OAA. Thank you, Hari. And now I'd like to welcome Joanne McCallum.
Okay, well, I think I have unmuted myself. Thank you very much, Katie. I'm really pleased to be here this afternoon and to give everyone an update on Prodemnity activities for 2019, as well as a bit of an overview for 2020 to date. It's kind of hard not to, under the current circumstances, to talk about 2020. I'd also like to just digress a moment and just say, I thought that the video on the headdress was amazing. So thank you for sharing that with the profession today. That was lovely. And I'd also like to say it was very heartwarming to virtually go through that recognition of the longstanding members and the past council members. It was very inspiring. Makes me very proud to be part of this profession when I, get to participate in some of that recognition. So that's awesome. So while you may not think that, a little talk on Prodemnity is the most exciting topic on the agenda, as chair of the board and as an OAA member, I can assure you that liability insurance and the Prodemnity Insurance Company is really integral to our profession and to the ongoing sustainability of our firms. 2019 was an eventful year in many ways. Internally, the organization has been evolving. Our new president and CEO, Bruce Palmer, started with the company in May of 2019. And over the course of the past year, we have added 4 new directors to the board. Susan Spiegel, who you've been hearing from today, as ex officio as the VP Treasurer of the OAA Council. Setimo Velarde from the OAA Council as well, and architects Peter Burton and Paul Gauguin, so as independent directors. And I'm very pleased and very sincere when I say that Bruce is a great addition to the company, and recognizing, of course, the immense contribution that Brian Treves has contributed to the development of Prodemnity over the preceding years. And the directors of the board are extremely knowledgeable, and they represent significant business acumen gained from many business sectors, including insurance, finance, governance, as well as the architectural profession. And echoing Katie's comments, Harry, an expert in governance and a wonderful man to have led through some of the transitional years at Prodemnity. So thank you, Harry, for that. Most importantly, I think what's important is that the professional liability program remains financially fit. So that kind of building on what Susan was saying with regard to OAA. The net premiums earned was up by 11%, and the number of policyholders increased by 2% to 1,506. During this same period, claims expenses increased by 11.6% to 13.9 million. So this is both a good and not so good statistic. It is good in that it represents the level of effort Prodemnity puts into defending architects. Not so good in that it pushes up costs. Clearly, containing costs without impacting our service delivery is a key priority for Prodemnity. So to that end, several initiatives have been implemented. We've strengthened our reinsurance program based on utilizing disaster scenario planning tools from 2 sources, Lloyd's, and also from a local reinsurance expert to ensure that we have robust capacity to deal with claims. We've introduced the claims expense contribution, which facilitates reducing costs in the long run and intended to more equitably share the cost of claims to some of the practices who have more frequent and severe claims. And we have expanded our internal legal team to 2 lawyers, which is another important facet of Prodemnity's work to better contain costs. So it should come as no surprise that Prodemnity is in the business of defending the profession. And if it is a surprise, then we have to do a better job of our communications strategy. But the graph summarizes claims reported over the past 12 years, totaling 1,903, and claims settled, totaling a value of 97 million worth of claims. So it is Prodemnity's mandate to vigorously defend architects when faced with a claim or named in lawsuits. And clearly, Prodemnity's activities have protected architects from having to bear significant costs themselves, as well as shielding them potentially from higher costs. 2020 is trending similar to 2019. Total claims in 2019 were 182, and 2020 is tracking with 81 claims so far. Assuming this trend continues, we'll end the year with approximately 162 new claims. This trend has been relatively consistent over the past 12 years. I mean, it would be wonderful if we could see that trend go down. I'm sure you would agree. I mean, sadly, claims are a matter of if and not when. And the premiums architects and architectural technologists pay continues to offer great benefit to the policyholders. So protecting architects, 2019, 2020, the other core part of what we do is protecting the profession through our risk management and communications program. You can follow us on LinkedIn. So a key strategic move for Prodemnity in 2019 has been and continues to be providing enhanced communications with our policyholders, which became critical in 2020 for reasons that we could never have anticipated. Over the past 18 months, Prodemnity issued several newsletters, bulletins, and plan updates as summarized on the slide. But who knew that a pandemic was going to dramatically alter business as usual in 2020? Prodemnity has issued 6 special edition bulletins to proactively address potential risks to the profession as a consequence of COVID-19, as well as providing an additional 5 announcements. These bulletins and announcements, in conjunction with the equally important messages issued by the OAA, provided policyholders and members with significant guidance and support for managing business and projects in a period of great uncertainty. Looking back to January 2019 is a look at a different world and a different way of doing business. COVID-19 has laid bare some fundamental truths about the world we live in, has wreaked havoc on business as usual, but also provides for new opportunities. As a business, Prodemnity had to radically adjust daily processes and shift to working remotely, as did most other businesses. The transition to remote working was successful, but not without some internal inefficiencies, which have largely been dealt with. And I'm sure we can all relate to this. And the slow, thoughtful return to the workplace will and is actually happening as phase 3 of the reopening is underway. The past spring, recognizing the immediate financial challenges faced by the profession, sorry, is there a problem with the audio? Okay. Well, that could be tricky. Now I have to find where I was. Okay. So this past spring, recognizing the immediate financial challenges faced by the profession, Prodemnity quickly made some following adjustments. 1, administration fees were waived on premium payment. 2nd, The option to make payments on a bi-monthly basis was implemented. And third, the option to make payments using pre-authorized payment or electronic funds transfer was offered to reduce the handling of checks and to ensure secure and timely payment. I'm pleased to say that to date, there have been no increase on cancellations or defaults on payments or any COVID-19 related claims, but we anticipate that with regard to the latter, the claims will eventually surface. There's also no question that the pandemic will have impact on the company financially, as we anticipate 2020 revenues for the architectural firms to potentially decrease. Premiums are determined on the prior 3 years' average revenues. So clearly there will be an impact on revenues in 2021 and going forward, but this is of course mitigated by the 3-year averaging. In this regard, we are encouraged and not surprised that the OAA has been very proactive in promoting the idea of new projects with the provincial government and the federal government to help kickstart the economy. There are no real guidelines for managing a business in a pandemic. This is uncharted territory for all of us, but be assured that we are watching and listening and monitoring. We will be there for architects in the short and long term, and we are working with our lawyers and reinsurers to stay up to date on construction and liability events related to COVID-19 that could impact us. I mentioned that COVID-19 laid bare some of the fundamental truths of the world we live in. And I think Susan spoke to this very eloquently, and Katie, but we have certainly witnessed the interrelatedness of health and wellness, diversity and inclusiveness, as well as climate change. As an organization, as part of ensuring that we are a sustainable organization in the broadest sense, we have renewed our commitment to diversity and inclusiveness. Pro-Demnity staff participated in unconscious bias training with the OAA last summer, and we introduced an updated diversity and inclusiveness policy addressing all aspects of our operation with the board to staff and consultants and vendors that are selected to work with Pro-Demnity. We've taken a stance against racism on LinkedIn, and it recognized June as Pride Month in Toronto. Internally, a staff-driven diversity and inclusiveness task force has been created with the mandate to address racism and other forms of discrimination through education, training, and shared events. So lastly, I want to talk a little bit about the future. And I want to say that Pro-Demnity Insurance Company is preparing for the future in a very proactive way. It's currently in the midst of a very thorough operational review in order to align the operations to better meet the needs of the profession. In this process, we have crafted the following as guiding principles. We exist as the trusted ally to protect and defend the architectural profession and their families by strengthening and supporting the resiliency of the risks associated with the practice. We strive each day to be the authority on risk, resulting in financially sustainable practices that unleash the full potential of the profession to improve society and human interaction through better design. So Pro-Demnity's commitment to architects is to be your ally in defending and protecting the architectural profession. To do so, we need to ensure the long-term growth and vitality of the company. As we move forward, we need to honor the past and all of the many ways the company has helped and supported the profession and the OAA, while ensuring that we build strength and depth and capacity for the future and all of the changes that this will mean to the profession. Going forward in 2020, we're focused on strengthening current operations, resiliency to future waves of the pandemic or whatever else might be in store for us. I hope nothing too surprising. Resiliency to ongoing claims trends, succession and planning to ensure we continue to strengthen our financial position to withstand whatever shocks come from the market, from the profession, from the regulator, and from anywhere else. This will mean remaining true to our primary objective in ensuring architects affordable and ready access to professional liability insurance while looking for sensible, profitable, and value-added opportunities to better serve the profession. So that is my brief summary of the past 18 months. And thank you very much for this opportunity to speak to the AGM.
Thank you, Joanne. Am I muted? There. So thank you, Joanne. I feel very confident that the OAA is in good hands with Prodemnity and its new revitalized leadership. So we look forward to a continued strong and healthy relationship with our two organizations.
Thank you. We do too.
In January, I sent a message to OAA members that highlighted what I saw as the two biggest challenges facing us: achieving climate stability and ensuring the profession is welcoming to all and truly reflects the composition of the province of Ontario. In February, Council met for its annual planning session and adopted both of these, along with education and membership participation, as the OAA's strategic priorities for the coming year. Equity, diversity, and inclusivity would be the lens through which all decisions would be made. Climate stability would serve as a high-level outcome shaping all of our vision. Education would offer a practical forum for shaping the future of the profession, and membership participation would give teeth to what it means to be self-governing. These priorities are all interconnected, and neither climate stability nor equity, inclusivity, and diversity are possible without both education and membership participation. At the time, we were particularly enthusiastic about the possibilities of what lay ahead for 2020. There were new faces on council, working side by side with more experienced council and staff. We had chosen a new registrar, Christy Mills, an architect with a background in practice and a strong understanding of the Architects Act. The OAA was poised to launch its new and revamped website and unveil a new logo that reinforced the concept of an inclusive OAA. We were ready to share our newly renovated headquarters, fine-tuned to meet its target of zero net carbon. And then came COVID-19. The pandemic pulled the rug out from under all of us, and from large practices to sole proprietors, the profession pivoted almost instantly to new ways of working. Not surprisingly, the OAA had to pivot as well. But despite extraordinary challenges, one thing didn't change. Protecting the public interest continued to be the OAA's primary responsibility, as set out in the Ontario Architects Act. Sometimes people get confused about whether the OAA is there to serve architects, but the Act makes it clear that it is the public interest that's most important, and that architecture is first and foremost a means to achieve that end. Having a strong profession of highly trained, well-informed architects, supported with appropriate tools and resources, leads to our vision of a safe and healthy built environment that performs at the highest levels and elevates the human spirit. Or more simply put, it helps us make the world a better place. The OAA has been active during the pandemic in championing many issues to protect the public interest, including infection control on construction sites, the importance of site inspections by both architect and the inspector, collaborative relationships between architects and building officials, and reminding all levels of government of the importance of shovel-ready projects to kickstart the economy. We also spoke of the need to use monies devoted to that kickstarting on projects that work towards achieving climate stability. On the communications front, the OAA launched its new website, added a COVID-19 updates resource page, and initiated a continually updated portal providing industry links and general government information that complemented the special bulletin alerts sent to members by Pro-Indemnity Insurance. During the pandemic, the OAA became particularly conscious of the challenges faced by students and interns graduating into the market and continuing on the path to licensure. It developed a series of online FAQs specifically targeted to students and interns, as well as their supervisors and mentors. It revised the work experience requirements of the intern architect program to permit OAA student associates to submit up to a maximum of 760 hours of pre-graduation architectural experience. I had the honor of speaking at a number of virtual convocations and graduations in the recent months, and consistently expressed my admiration for how quickly students and faculty adapted to distance learning. As a profession, it is important that we provide opportunities for this cohort of new and recent graduates to ensure that they are able to move forward towards licensure. On other fronts, the OAA canceled its annual conference for the 2020 and transformed its annual general meeting into this online event that we are participating in today. It extended continuing education cycle from the summer to the end of the calendar year and moved many of the Con Ed sessions planned to be offered at the conference into specially priced webinars. These initiatives and so many more would not have been possible without the Herculean efforts of OAA staff led by Executive Director Christy Doyle and committee and council members, all volunteering and working remotely. As with the rest of the profession, we all learned about Zoom and found ourselves facing unprecedented life circumstances, assuming new roles as homeschool teachers, taking care of parents or children, sharing office space with significant others, or living in complete physical isolation. These altered circumstances took an enormous toll, and I congratulate and thank all of you for your extraordinary commitment and resilience. Recent months have witnessed a radical sense of urgency for all parts of society, including the profession of architecture, to address systemic discrimination against Black, Indigenous, and people of color. The OAA is only too aware of the inadequacy of past efforts, as well intentioned as they may have been. It identified the need to broaden membership in the profession for many years, and as recently as June, shared its solidarity with those speaking out against systemic discrimination against Black and Indigenous communities. But progress has been slow, and the OAA needs to set more ambitious goals going forward. We received candid constructive criticism on how we need to do better, both collectively and individually, to confront deep-rooted biases and ensure all voices are represented. We are determined to lead, not follow. In a nutshell then, you can see how the OAA started the year, how it pivoted with the arrival of COVID-19, and what it sees now as the priorities ahead. On the membership engagement front, we are exploring new and better ways to promote a culture of volunteerism and put a face on what it means to be self-governing profession. Both architecture and the OAA need to better reflect the makeup of Ontario. And to achieve this, we need your help. Information on upcoming elections for the OAA Council will be coming out shortly, and I urge you to strongly consider running if you feel you can bring your perspective forward, or encourage colleagues who you think could contribute to do so. Your profession and the public needs your voice. Earlier this year, the Council introduced its first Vice President of Education. The OAA's Continuing Education Committee has evolved into the Comprehensive Education Committee, with an expanded mandate to oversee the whole spectrum of education, from primary and secondary school to universities, internship, licensure, and the various phases of practice, including retirement. Comprehensive education includes everything from teaching students about what architecture is and how to become an architect, to making self-evident to the public why they should work with one. It includes helping those in the profession understand how to keep current with emerging trends, building sciences and technologies, as well as how to share knowledge with their peers. It also includes providing resources so OAA members can continue to develop their financial literacy at all stages of their career, from negotiating salary and job interviews to how to prepare for retirement. Strong financial literacy also benefits owners and the public by enabling the reduction of project risks and improving project outcomes. Meanwhile, climate change remains one of the defining challenges of our times. Energy use intensity, or EUI metrics, were introduced this year as a mandatory requirement for the OAA's Design Excellence Award programs. Resilient, climate-stable architecture is no longer an aspiration or a specialty. It must be a standard expectation for all buildings, and the public must understand why. The OAA's Sustainable Built Environments Committee recently issued an RFP for a new tool for EUI for the profession. Among the many other projects it has on the go is the further development of its four walls research and the sourcing of access to training for OAA members for multiple sustainable initiatives. We look forward to the day when it will be safe to welcome visitors to our OAA renewed and refreshed headquarters. In its pursuit of a net zero carbon consumption, it also recognized the importance of embodied energy by demonstrating firsthand how existing buildings can be adapted rather than replaced. Last year, the OAA hosted a roundtable on resiliency as part of our efforts to gain insights into the solutions for climate stability. But it turns out that buildings aren't the only things that need to be resilient. So too do we as a profession. The COVID-19 pandemic demonstrated how quickly paradigms can shift and how critical it is that architects individually and collectively be able to adapt and excel. The OAA is here to help make this a reality, and the public deserves no less. Thank you. So I'd now like to provide the opportunity for questions or feedback. So if you enter questions, Christy will organize them and I'll try and answer them in the order they're submitted. We will allocate approximately 15 minutes for this section of the meeting. If we have more questions than time allows, we will be responding with a post-meeting report citing the questions and preparing responses. Please note the questions that are similar in nature will be grouped together and will be addressed with one response. Christy, I'm going to turn it to you to feed the questions.
Okay, thanks, Katie. I'm just going to watch the question box. Okay, Katie, I do have one question, comment question that I will read out for you. Give me a second here. Okay, the question feedback is, the gender makeup of interns is essentially 50% female, 50% male. The gender makeup of licensed members is, I believe, 70% male, 30% female. Are numbers trending towards alignment?
So yes, they are. You know, our profession, when I graduated from university, which was a long time ago, the numbers were very different. It was predominantly male. So as my generation of architects retire, the baby boomers, and the younger generation of architects take over the profession, those numbers will become closer and closer. But quite frankly, you're gonna have to wait for my generation to retire for the numbers to really come close to a 50-50 split. It's one of those things, you know. So yes, I'm really, I think it's really positive, and we will, within the next, you know, couple of decades, maybe even the next decade, see the numbers be much closer.
Thank you. I'm just going to check and see if we've got anything else.
Were there any questions left over from the 2019 report? Because I think the way you answered it suggested there might have been a question that was relative to the 2020.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I do have, I received one question that is a indemnity question. I'm not sure whether Joanne is prepared to answer it. I did correspond with a member to say that we could follow up afterwards, but up to you guys.
What's the question?
Well, I can certainly bring it forward. The question, it's quite a lengthy question, and really what it is, Joanne, is that it's a comment about the prodemnity. I'll read it to you. Introduced a past regulation for all architects who are using other provincial insurance providers, additionally to prodemnity's mandatory coverage, to be excluded for non-limited coverage for the legal support. These individuals are still paying the same premium for prodemnity insurance coverage as the individuals who are not using other insurance providers. In my opinion, there's something wrong there. Prodemnity should be charging the same premium in these two situations. The architects who are buying additional insurance from other insurance provider is receiving less protection from prodemnity, and the premium should be reduced. Is there anything that you could comment on at this point, Joanne, or is this a follow-up question?
I think I would really like that to be a follow-up question. It's complicated. And I mean, Bruce is on the call. Maybe he could say something, but I would hate to get my foot in my mouth on that one.
Okay. I think that's fine, and the member is okay with that approach.
Yep. Thank you.
I have other questions. Katie, is there an update on the efforts regarding the Employment Standards Act? The recent pandemic has shown how important protection of employees are to protect the most vulnerable within our profession.
So unfortunately, when one of the, I forget what the bill number was, rescinded by the current provincial government, all of the work that the OAA did towards employment standards and progress we'd made with the provincial government disappeared. It hasn't, it's still on our radar, and it's something that we continue to be concerned about. And I agree, the pandemic has really made all of this really top of mind. So I'm sorry I don't have any progress to tell you about. I can only tell you that it's something that is definitely on our radar.
Thank you, Katie. I have another question that's come from a couple of people. They were wondering how many members are online today. And in fact, I can tell you the participation is 233. That does include some, a few guests, a few non-members, but also a mix of interns and licensed members. I have another question. Scrolling through here. Question, is there a specific place on the OAA website where OAA members can make comments and suggestions about the new OAA logo and website?
Well, I would suggest you go to OAA Chat, which is our new kind of place for members to make whatever comments and have open discussions. So you just type in oaa.chat and that site will come up. And if there isn't a topic there that you think you would like to talk or your questions might fit into, suggest a topic and it will be taken care of immediately.
Next question, Katie. What are some concrete steps taken by the OAA to support equity, diversity, etc.?
So at our last council meeting, we had a very long discussion about that, about where we would go. And at that council meeting, we came up with a few immediate steps that we would take. So we're gonna, some of the feedback we got from people about what the OAA had done before was we just didn't have accurate data on the breakdown of our membership relative to their background. So we're in the process of sourcing a survey provider who can help us with that, help us gain that information. I think if we haven't put an RFP out for it, we're about to put that RFP out shortly. The Vice President of Communications and the Vice President of Education, that's Amir and Agata, are continuing to liaise and share information via Instagram and other social media platforms. And we've recently sent out an invite to all our membership asking for expressions of interest to participate in a roundtable specifically on this issue, so that we can look to our membership to provide suggestions, opportunities about how to move forward on this. So we're trying to tackle it on multiple fronts. And then also we have a number of education pieces in our webinars coming up in, I think, the early fall that deal with specific issues targeted at different needs around inclusivity, equity, and diversity. I think that's, and then of course there's the priority lens that we set at the beginning of the year, which is about all of our decisions being looked at through that lens to ensure that we're being as equitable and inclusive and diverse as we move forward.
Thank you, Katie. I have another inquiry as to the status of the regulation of interior design under the Architects Act.
So that's kind of in a hold, not kind of, it is in a holding pattern right now. We've had a couple of meetings with the new AG. In fact, we've been through 2 AGs in the last couple of years. And the information we got from the last meeting with the AG, the Attorney General of Ontario, was to keep looking at it, but it wasn't a priority of his government at this time, but that it's important work that, and he recognized the value of it, and that we should have our ducks in a row so that when the time is right, we can move forward.
Thank you, Katie. Other question from a member: OAA has committed to raise the public awareness of architects. Question is, any progress has been made so far?
Oh gosh, I guess that's a relative question. We made a lot of progress with, I think, the shift results from last year. We got lots of press. It's COVID's been a bit of a tough nut to crack in terms of public public outreach. We're having to shift our gears on that. And we're certainly open to suggestions about how to do that. You know, a big piece of our strategy is around education. And one of the things that COVID did allow for us is adding our education programs for elementary school into the Ontario curriculum to allow it as one of those, or make it available as one of those online training sessions, that because teachers were all scrambling for, you know, online training for their students in the spring. And so we're looking to build on that. And I know that Agata, our VP of Education, is really focused on that. And of course, the thinking being, you know, educate the kids, because they're our future. Anything else, Christy?
I just wonder, I haven't had any questions for the last couple of minutes. So I think I've got one last question. I think we can, I'll put forward to you. I'm not sure if you are prepared to answer it or pass it along. The question is, why is it that BCIN holders can act as architects in design and permit processes of small structures? Why is it that OAA cannot stop anyone other than OAA license holders to be involved in design and permit processes? I think this is Katie, really a question about what constitutes the practice of architecture and what is the restricted scope of practice, as you know, residential and some small structures are not restricted under our legislation. But would you like to comment further?
So I just missed the last part of that question, Christy, about, I got the BCIN piece, and then
the last part of the question is, why is it that the OAA cannot stop anyone other than OAA license holders to be involved in the design and permit process?
So if it's, and you know, maybe we have to write a more detailed response, but just the registrar often is issuing cease and desist orders to people who are operating outside of the scope of what's allowed in the Act. So if you're a non-licensed architect doing work in areas where you're required to be a licensed architect, the registrar, and it's drawn to the OA's attention, the registrar will certainly issue a cease and desist order. You know, there's part 9, excuse me, which that's clearly defined in the Ontario Building Code. And I think that's the area where BCINs are allowed to do work, and they always have been able to. So it's part of the building code.
Right.
Beyond our control, but we will issue something more detailed about this, because I'm just dealing with it on a very high level.
I'm just reading. I think we're almost at our 15-minute mark. I have one additional question coming in about fees. Katie, can anything be done about minimum fees due to COVID-19? Fees are being significantly undercut to the point of being unfeasible. Other professions seem to be able to maintain some sorts of standards. This does have a bearing on prodemnity as per our ability to fulfill professional roles.
So I'm assuming you're talking about architects' fees to do a project as opposed to OAA fees to its membership. Could you get clarification on that, Christy? So.
Sure, I can do that. I'll have to email that member back. I think, Katie, there's going to be, I'm getting a string of emails coming in now. We may have to follow up with individual answers to some of these questions. Would you like to take more?
How about one more question, and
okay.
then
I have a question. What work is underway with public agencies who propose engaging architects through contracts that do not respect our professional practices, i.e. those that would have us contravene our insurance policy limits, which are designed to protect the public?
Well, that's a tough one. The OAA has, worked with IO in the past to try and deal with those kinds of issues. We continue to issue practice bulletins warning our membership about, RFPs that might, where they'll have to make a business decision about whether or not they want to take that business risk. It's I think we're limited in how far we can go on this. There's the Combines Act, so we're not allowed to say minimum fees are X, Y, and Z. We're putting a big emphasis on financial literacy training for our profession, hoping that as our profession becomes more financially literate, they will make better decisions about the fees they might propose for these RFPs. It's a big complex issue, and I would say stay tuned to future newsletters and pieces from the OAA. It's an ongoing situation which there are no clear answers to, but something that is evolving every day.
Katie, we probably have, there's probably 7 or 8 more questions. Some of them may require additional follow-up.
Okay. So how are we doing for time? I think are we at our limit?
Our time is 4:36.
Oh my goodness, we're half an hour over our 2 hours. I'm sorry about that, everybody. Can you just choose the ones that might be, quick? There's no such thing as a quick answer, is there? Let's do one last question, and I promise we will follow up to everybody, not just the people that wrote the question, with answers to the questions that we haven't gotten to today.
I'm just scrolling through here. We did receive clarification from the member on the one question. The clarification was yes.
Yes, about fees that
yes
charge. Well, I think that I sort of covered that in the last answer to the last question, in that fees charged by members are really the members' choice, right? So the OAA can't tell members what fees they can charge. That would be against the Combines Act. There is the RIAC fees guideline, which we would always encourage members to reference, but encourages the operative word there. And it's, it's unfortunate if members choose to undercut each other. You're kind of hurting each other and yourselves at the same time, because it becomes a vicious downward spiral. But I think that's something we need to kind of do a broader writing to the membership on. I know John Stevens, as the past president, wrote to the membership many times about this. And it's certainly not something that we are ignoring. So beyond that, I don't know what else I can say right now, but we'll look to get back to, probably with an unsatisfactory answer, because I don't know that there is a satisfactory answer, but we will continue to try. So on that note, and I wish it were more positive, Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. I'm really amazed that 230 odd people took the time to join this first virtual AGM. We've got tough times ahead, but I think we're a strong profession and we've demonstrated our strength over the last few months, and we should all be proud of ourselves and continue to move forward and use our skills and our resiliency to deal with the challenges ahead. So thank you.
Katie, would you like to call for or do the motion to adjourn?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't need to do it. I'm sorry. So I would now like to entertain a motion to adjourn. So Gyun Lee of Toronto has moved the motion to adjourn today's meeting, and it's seconded by Melissa Adet of Toronto. So we'll pause for 30 seconds to allow for the final vote. So Julius, everybody wants to abstain except for 1%. So let's call this, or everybody wants to, adjourn. So let's call this meeting closed. But just before we close, I just want everybody to, I've already thanked you, have a wonderful day and let you know that we're closing this meeting on that positive note I was searching for a few minutes earlier by once again recognizing our newly licensed members. So please stay connected for a few minutes and watch as the names scroll through if you logged in later this afternoon. Bye, everybody.